Alrighty, Professor Krush here once again, and what I'm going to do in this little lesson is to go over this drawing of rendering this long farmhouse building, kind of like a long barn. And this is the actual image of this building, which does exist. It's on Pulaski Road in Huntington. And it's a nice study for two-point perspective because you have a long side of a building, and you have another side of a building, and you're seeing most of the side of this side of the building, so there's only a slight angle in terms of how those lines go up, and then it's a little bit more of an angle that way. I've done some pretty hit-and-run Photoshop work here just to kind of remove some of the bush that's in front here so you can actually see this corner and see this line that would go through here and see these lines come out this way and this way a little bit more to meet. Here's like a little dissection, if you will, of how this thing starts to form, where the lines start to work in terms of two-point perspective. So just like I was doing in a previous lesson that looked at a rectangle above, on, and below the horizon, one thing that needs to happen to start this off is to make an estimation of where that horizon is. And there's a couple of ways that can happen. You can actually take this angle, there's an angle through here, and let this angle go out and let this angle come down, and where these meet, plot a point and know that that's your horizon, and then draw a horizontal, perfectly horizontal line through across the whole image behind it, and that's where you know you're going to have vanishing points that are going to reside on. So what I've done is I've actually drawn in here so you can kind of estimate and see this angle, you know, versus an imaginary horizontal line at the base. And it's hard to see, but there's a little bit of an angle here, as this is not straight but starting to go back, just like it's straight here and then starting to come down. So this has a really far out vanishing point to the left where these lines are actually going to go out and eventually meet. When I'm doing my drawing for real, I'm cheating a little bit on this side and making a little bit shorter vanishing point, which means it's a little bit more of an angle, just so that you get a better understanding of seeing the perspective lines. On this one, because it's more of an angle, a sharper angle, you can actually see more clearly where these meet. And so anyway, this is a good way to look at the actual photograph, you know, which was here, and kind of break it down in terms of how it's working in terms of real perspective. So there's the horizon, there's the vanishing point here, all the way out there, and all these lines, this base line, the roof line, the top of the roof here, are all going to go out and meet at that vanishing point on that side. Here's the vertical, which I didn't mention, but the most important thing, and sadly, it's one of the harder things to see here. But if I draw this line from here to here, this perfectly vertical line, where it meets the roof overhang, that is going to dictate a heck of a lot in terms of where this is going to sit on the page and the scale relationship. So do not make this, when you're drawing this for a project, for me, for project 7, do not make this more than like 1.5 inches to about 1.5 inches. If you make it bigger, it's going to be really hard to have these vanishing points go all the way out. You could probably go up to 2 inches, but I wouldn't go. 1 inch is a little bit too small. So I'm thinking like 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches. All right, let me go to the actual drawing. And also notice, here's where these lines are going to converge. And then here's a center line for what would be the middle of the side of that building, where the window is going to reside, and even the top and bottom of the window are going to be governed by going to that vanishing point. The tops of these doors, okay, the doors are going to drop totally vertical for the opening of the doors, but the top and bottom of those doors are going to be guided once again straight to that vanishing point. All right, so here's my drawing for what it's worth. And for my students, in 101, you're going to see there's all some nice step-by-step images to work from. Again, the most critical line is going to be this one here, from here to here. You don't really get, it's not like we're doing the cube, because you do have this overhang to consider. So you're making that up to the point where you think it's kind of hitting that roof line, and there's your vertical to start. Size-wise, yeah, that's like an inch. I mentioned 1.5 inches. It's about exactly what it is from here to here. So that keeps it on the page pretty well. All right. I'm estimating this angle by looking at the actual image. So here's an imaginary horizontal. Here's the angle that I'm seeing, and here's the angle measured. So as this goes out, where it hits that vanishing point, okay, is where where it hits. Well, two ways you can look at it. We can estimate again the horizon line by eye, where we think it is, and then where it hits that is going to be the vanishing point. Or to create where the horizon line is, we could go from here all the way out, and from, say, the roof line all the way out, and where they intersect would also be the horizon line. I know that sounds confusing, but it's just two different ways to approach it. The way I did it was actually estimate where I saw the horizon line seemed to be behind all of that. So I drew the horizon line first all the way across, which you'll see in my step-by-steps, and then I'm drawing this vertical, and then I'm drawing angles out to it. So as you're building this thing, on this side, again, you have this line, you have the roof line, you have the top roof line, okay, going to that. This roof shape here is a little tricky because you have to estimate that by looking at the actual image. It's like, what is the angle? What do those angles look like in terms that define that roof? And here's an important little tidbit. These lines are not going to the vanishing point. This is an angle that's separate. It's cutting down lower than something that's lengthwise. So you have to estimate that by eye. When you have this angle and you draw it, what you're actually doing is taking that and bringing that parallel all the way to the end here to get the other end of that roof. So this is parallel to that. And then you have this side of the roof. So these angles should be just about the same, and that's your other end of the roof. So from this side, I actually drew this, I drew that roof line, and then I started drawing again angles to where they're going to go out and meet in terms of hitting that vanishing point. All right, and like I said, I cheated a little bit. Theoretically, it would probably be off this page and out another 3 or 4 inches, but to keep it all on the page, I have a little bit more of an angle here so that I can reach this vanishing point. These lines through here are all just the siding of the building. So if you go from here, you can see these lines all relate to how that side of that building has some of this siding on it. The windows, like I mentioned before, here's the top of the window, bottom of the window, being governed by the vanishing point. Verticals, remember, verticals always drop straight plumb down vertical. There's a chimney back here where we're looking slightly up at it, so there's an angle down at the top of it in the round part. And I'm adding a little foliage just for the fun. You could actually add more foliage. You do not need, obviously, do not write my notes on your work, okay? You can leave guidelines if you wish on your work, but add, just have a little fun trying to add a little foliage that goes around this. On this side, there's 3 little windows that are happening in there. We could do the Bob Ross thing and say we'll have 3 little windows live here, and we'll have a nice little bush live over here. Maybe we'll have a bird flying up here. I won't get carried away. So anyway, that's it. Here's your vertical. Here's your roof. I've also indicated the feeling by going through here, the feeling of some stop and go lengthwise lines on the roof, okay, and then I'm coming in on an angle, the same angle as the roof, and I'm coming in here and I'm adding some lines that make it feel like shingles on the roof. I'm not going crazy and trying to draw it all. I'm just giving a hint of it for the feeling of what the roof is, just like I'm doing with the siding, where I'm not trying to be totally precise. I'm just doing a little stop and go lines to get the feeling of the siding on the top of the building. All right, so I think that's it. I tend to, I'm always trying to do these videos where they have to be under 15 minutes, so hopefully I've done that. Good luck with it, and I hope for anybody viewing this video that this is helpful information. Thank you.